In this video, we're learning about the past tense in German, which simply refers to events that have happened in past time, that is, before the present. Now, this is actually called the perfect tense in German. That's a bit confusing, but perfect refers to things that are completed. But we're simply going to call it the past tense because it's the most commonly used and most important way of talking about things that have happened in the past in German. The first thing I'm going to mention is the 3-for-1 deal, which benefits us as English speakers learning German. Remember that in the present tense in English, we have 3 different ways of expressing an action. For example, we could say I play, I am playing, or I do play. German is much simpler. They choose one of those and say I play. Ich spiele. We have a similar situation in the past tense. In English, we have so many different ways of expressing action in the past. We could say, I played, I have played, I did play, or even I was playing. But in German, we have one main way of expressing what has happened in the past, and that is this second option, I have played. Ich habe gespielt. Let's look at some model sentences so that we see what's happening more closely. Firstly, I played football, or I have played football, so that it's more similar to the German. There are 2 terms we need to learn, both in the English and in the German. The first term is helping verb. And the word have in this sentence is a helping verb. It's not the main idea, but it helps play express itself in the past tense. The second term is past participle, and that simply refers to the word play in its past tense form. German has the same 2 concepts. Ich habe Fußball gespielt. The verb habe isn't the main idea, but it helps spielen express itself in the past tense, so that's our helping verb. The second element is the past participle, which goes to the end of the sentence, notice, as all German second verbs do, and is gespielt. It changes not only the end of the word, but also the beginning of the word, and we'll talk about that a bit later. The second model sentence is, I went to school, or I have gone to school. Again, English uses have as the helping verb, and the word gone is the past participle of the verb to go in English. The German is, ich bin zur Schule gegangen. Bin, in this case, is the helping verb, and it's slightly different, as you can see, to our first example, and we'll see why in a second. The past participle has gone to the end of the sentence, and that is gegangen, which is the past tense form of the verb gehen. To begin with, let's look more closely at the helping verb, which is also called the auxiliary verb, which is just longer and harder to remember. We have 2 different categories in German. If in the main verb there is movement or transition of state, then we simply use the verb sein, which we conjugate, as we know, as ich bin, du bist, sie, es ist, wir sind, ihr seid, or sie sind. We use this for actions such as walking, flying, running, swimming, but also for more significant movements such as moving house, or more significant transitions such as being born or dying. The second category is verbs with no movement, which is the majority of verbs. They use as their helping verb haben, which, as you know, we conjugate as ich habe, du hast, sie, es hat, wir haben, ihr habt, or sie haben. This is used for everyday, regular activities such as eating, drinking, playing chess, listening to music, or talking. We're going to look in more detail at the second element, the past participle. Now, German verbs can be separated into 2 categories: weak verbs, which are usually regular, and strong verbs, which are usually irregular. Examples of weak verbs are spielen and fragen. Now, what we do with weak verbs, and this is the normal pattern, is we add GE to the front of the verb and we chop off the en at the end and instead add a t. So played is gespielt, as we've already seen, and asked is gefragt. There are also some weak verbs which change a little bit more than that, like the vowel in the middle. For example, kennen, the word for to know a person or a thing, becomes gekannt, but we'll simply learn those as we go. Strong verbs, on the other hand, keep the en at the end of the verb instead of using a t. Examples are gesprochen, spoken, gesehen, seen, gekommen, come, and gegangen, gone. Notice that from sprechen to gesprochen, the E has changed to an O, and gegangen just looks weird. But we're going to learn those irregularities as we go. There is a clue or a tip, however, for determining which verbs are weak and which are strong, and that is that if you look at the er form in the present tense or the du form, if there is a change in vowel, that means the verb is irregular and probably ends in en. So for example, spricht, we have an I instead of an E, so that is a strong verb with an en. For example, in sieht as well, the E has become an IE, and so that's also a strong verb. But if we look over the other side of the table, spielt, fragt, kennt, those don't change at all, and so they very clearly belong in the regular category. Here's another trick for figuring out the past participle, but only for English speakers. Because English and German are so closely related, they often have similar past tense forms. So let's look at those which end in en. If you take I have and then put an English verb into the past tense, if there is an en, there probably is an en as well in the German past participle. For example, I have taken. Well, ich habe genommen with an en as well. And three more examples. I have spoken. Ich habe gesprochen. I have eaten. Ich habe gegessen. I have written. Ich habe geschrieben. On the other side of the page, if you look at English verbs and in the past tense form they have a T or an ED, then most likely in German they've got a T. I have brought. Ich habe gebracht. I have cooked. Ich habe gekocht. I have learnt or learned. Ich habe gelernt. I have heard. Ich habe gehört. We've looked at the two elements in detail, and to finish we're going to look at some mixed sentences. By mixed, I mean verbs that contain two different past tense forms. Firstly, I went home and studied. Now in this sentence, we say in German, ich bin nach Hause gegangen und habe gelernt. Notice that we use bin with the first verb because it's a verb of movement, going. But we use habe for the second verb because studying or learning is an activity which does not require significant movement. And you need to make sure that you change the helping verb in that sentence so that each past participle has the correct helping verb. Here's the second example. I drove home and went hiking. Ich bin nach Hause gefahren und wandern gegangen. In this example, all you need is the one helping verb, bin, because both verbs are verbs of movement or transition, and so they don't need a separate helping verb.